I'm going to tell you something that would probably get me fired if I still had a boss. Earning 150,000 a year didn't make me feel safe. It made me feel trapped because the more I earned, the more I realized how fast it could disappear. I couldn't risk depending on just one source of income. I know it sounds cliche, but during my 9 to 5, I started building something on the side. I mean, this is just what worked for me and why I stopped trusting the idea that a good job equals security. If you're working hard and doing everything right, but still feel replaceable, I mean, you'll definitely understand this. Early in my life, I didn't have role models. No one explained careers, no one explained how money works or about investments because both of my parents immigrated to the US and were too busy working 2 to 3 jobs, hustling to support us. So they never really had the luxury to teach those kind of things to me. So eventually I turned to books. I started reading business books, finance and investing books, stories about people who built something. And those books stayed with me even when I entered corporate life because deep down, I never fully believed the system was stable. At first, I really did try to commit to my 9 to 5. I worked hard, I stayed late, sometimes working 60 to 80 hours when I was younger. I did what I was told. But then you see things, promotions that get delayed, promises that quietly vanish, talented people laid off overnight. And that's when it clicks. Your job doesn't love you, it just rents you. And the lease can end anytime. The average worker now stays at a job less than 4 years. That's not stability, that's like musical chairs. So when I landed my last job paying around 150,000 a year, I made a decision I never said out loud. I'm going to build something on the side just in case. Not because I hated my job, but because I didn't trust it. That single mindset shift changed everything for me. Over time, I became very good at my job, but I also decided to become quote unquote competent. I did exactly what was in my job description, no more, no less. This is what people call quiet quitting. According to one source called Gallup, about 50% of the US workforce is doing this right now. I wasn't a bad employee, I was just an efficient one. I figured out how to do 8 hours of work in 3 hours through scripts or sometimes through workflow automation. That left me with the rest of company time to build out my plan. Because companies don't reward extra effort forever, they reward it until budgets change. Only around 21% of workers globally feel engaged at work. The rest are just mentally checked out. Here's the part most people won't say out loud. During slow days at work, when I had few meetings on the calendar, I was working on my side hustle. Sometimes it was managing my investment portfolio. I mean, there were days where I was just literally watching the market to time an entry when I didn't have anything going on. I remember one of the most nerve wracking moments was when a coworker of mine came up to me right before I was about to buy a stock. Sometimes it was learning a new skill too. I mean, there's plenty of things that I am not an expert in, and I always continue to try to learn and develop new skills. And other times it was building up my YouTube channel. But here is the golden rule. I told no one. Never ever tell your coworkers about your side hustle. They aren't your friends. They are part of a system you're trying to leave if you decide to. If you tell them, you're putting a target on your back. If the boss hears you're distracted, you're going to be the first one gone when the budget gets cut or during a company restructuring. There's a reason most people stay quiet about this. About 40% of side hustlers hide their projects from their employer because they fear retaliation. As much as I wanted to tell someone what I was working on, I had that same fear too, and why I chose to keep my mouth shut. Now listen, this won't work for every job. If you're watched constantly, if your work is physical, if downtime doesn't really exist, I mean, your options are pretty limited, but you have to try and adapt. Maybe you could spend some time during lunch breaks, or early in the morning, or maybe in your car. It doesn't matter when or how you do it. What matters is the consistency. And since 2021, consumer prices rose over 20% while real wages barely moved. That's why many Americans now have a side hustle. This isn't people being greedy, they're just adjusting. But here's what surprised me the most. The goal for me was never to really quit my job. It was more to reduce fear. Once I had enough money saved up and built other sources of income, something changed for me. I stopped worrying about layoffs, I stopped stressing over politics, I stopped tying my identity to a paycheck. I mean, that's real freedom. So let me simplify what worked for me. I treated my 9 to 5 like a funding source, not a life purpose, and my side hustle like insurance. Most people fail because they get those two backwards. But look, I'm not trying to sound totally anti corporate here, and I'm not saying everyone needs a side hustle. But if your entire future depends on one paycheck, you're not employed, you're exposed. You have to give yourself more options. I mean, that's what worked for me, and that's the part no one puts on LinkedIn. The corporate world will take as much as you are willing to give. So I would say stop giving it everything and start giving it just enough and give the rest to yourself. Anyways, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.